Hi and hello guys, this is John and Casey, and for those of you that are new to our channel, we are Canadian-born Filipinos who recently decided to move to the Philippines to reconnect with our roots. And today, we are finally going to the Philippines. We're about to board our flight, or technically, we're going to the airport right now and we're gonna board our flight.
Welcome to our story.
How much do you want to bet that my mom's gonna cry? Hi, Mom. Hi, don't cry. Don't cry.
Enjoy.
Watch for John, eh? Yung mga staff ni Johnny, babantayan mo.
Don't cry.
Your mom's crying. I'll see you in 2 months.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Enjoy.
Bye. Guys, even though we were pretty prepared with everything and we had our own travel hacks, I'm not gonna lie, we are super tired. But before we go to bed, we wanted to impart some travel wisdom with what we learned from this trip. So hopefully some of you guys that want to go back to the Philippines, come back home super soon. We hope that this video will help you guys. So this video is for you. I think the overall experience at, because we're from Toronto, so the overall experience going from there to the Philippines was, even though it was really long, it was pretty straightforward. Like when we got there was a lot of people in line, and I think it's because it just kept getting pushed back because a lot of people weren't actually prepared for the entire the entry process, because you need a lot of different documents. We're actually going to go over that as we go through the video as well, guys, so make sure you stay tuned. The food on the flight was actually okay. Usually it's actually really good when it comes to direct flights to the Philippines.
From our past experience, it was pretty good.
Yeah, so we had like 3 meals. There was no snacks.
Yeah,
that's so weird.
like
Usually there's snacks.
3 full meals.
So now for the big section that everybody's been asking for, what do you actually need in order to get into the Philippines? So this is just a disclaimer, this is based off our own experiences, Casey and I, but it's also based off of us being foreign tourists. Yes, we are Filipino, but based on the description that the Filipino government puts these people or us into a category, we are labeled as foreign tourists because we don't have a Filipino citizenship.
So the first requirement is a negative PCR test.
Also, usually PCR tests take about 24 hours to receive the results.
Yeah.
So you might have to take an express PCR test, which does cost a little bit more money. But taking the express PCR test ensures that you get your PCR test results in time. I know for us, we did an express PCR test, and we got the results that day within a couple of hours.
The second requirement is that you need to be a fully vaccinated individual. The third requirement is completing or registering with the One Health Pass.
Another requirement is that you need to have insurance, and not just medical insurance. It does have to cover the certain virus that I can't say right now because YouTube will get mad at us. But it does need to say specifically that it covers that specific virus, okay? Up to 35,000, minimum 35,000 USD that it has to cover. So on the topic of insurance, what was really sad is when we were at the airport, we saw a lot, and it was kind of, it was actually really sad because majority of them were actually lolos and lolas, like grandmas and grandpas, that didn't know, or their travel agent didn't tell them that they needed travel insurance. Now for foreign tourists like Casey and I, it's kind of common sense that we do need some sort of travel insurance. But for balikbayan visas, so this is for people that aren't Filipino citizen, like dual citizen, but is just availing the balikbayan visa. So what the balikbayan visa is that if you have an old passport, an old Philippine passport, you're allowed entry into the Philippines up to 1 year. So if you are one of those people, even though technically you are Filipino, you still need that insurance. And not just that insurance, remember, it's not just medical insurance, it's medical insurance that also covers the virus that I can't talk about, all right? And there's some people that did have a medical insurance that did cover that virus, but it was only 25,000. And remember what we talked about? It's a minimum of 35,000 US dollar. Yeah. And other people, they had more than 35,000 US dollar, but they didn't have the proper paperwork. They had the receipt that they paid for the insurance, but they didn't have the paperwork that actually said that this insurance is for this person, this is the policy number, and also it covers that virus, right? So I think that's the main things you want to look for in that insurance, is that you have the policy number, you have the name for that policy number, and then you have the amount that it covers, and also what type of virus it does cover in addition.
The fifth requirement is having an Onward Ticket. This is based on our experience as foreign tourists, as we are able to travel 30 days within the country, but the Onward Ticket has to be within that 30 days.
So for the Onward Ticket that Casey was talking about, it's actually either Onward Ticket or a return to port of destination. So in our case, it would be either an Onward Ticket to, let's say, Singapore, or a flight back to Toronto. And seeing as how we're going to be in the Philippines for 60 days, we don't want to fly back to Toronto and have to fly back to the Philippines. So we did some research, and again, this is just a disclaimer, this is based on our own experience, and what worked for us is that we didn't want to pay a full-on we didn't want to pay for a full-on ticket to Singapore, which was, it's still pretty cheap, mind you, but it was $100 Canadian, about $120 Canadian. So what we did was we found this website that YouTuber nomads that actually do this a lot, and it's called onwardticket.com. So what onwardticket.com is, you get to rent a reservation for a flight, and you can actually print that reservation off and show that to the immigration officer. Mm-hmm. So it did work for us, but our plan B, we actually had a plan B still in case it didn't get accepted, that we would have enough funds to be able to purchase the tickets on the spot if needed. But just to let you guys know, it did work for us, and it was only $12 US per person. So we ended up spending $24 US as opposed to 240 Canadian dollars.
We can leave the link for the website down below.
Yeah.
The sixth requirement is a valid passport that doesn't expire within 6 months of arriving in the Philippines.
And just a last note for the travel requirements, from what we've heard from a lot of people at the airport that were having trouble, is that they booked their flight to the Philippines as soon as they found out there was no quarantine. So they booked it through a travel agent. Now, those travel agents, and it wasn't just one person, it was multiple people that said that their travel agent booked their flight for them, but didn't tell them all of the requirements. So it was either they didn't tell them any requirements, or they didn't tell them, or they didn't know that they needed insurance. So I think one of our tips is when you're talking to your travel agent, Casey actually came up with this tip, is to make sure to let them know that you aren't a Filipino citizen. This is if you aren't, but specifically let them know if you're a balikbayan visa, because if you're a balikbayan visa, you do need travel insurance. But it's always better if you actually do your own research. Just do your own due diligence and do your own research on what the present travel restrictions are for the Philippines. In saying that, we actually recommend one channel that we get all of our travel advice from, and it's actually Jennifer Terry. So we're gonna actually put a link to her channel down below, and if you keep up to date with that, if you subscribe to her and watch all of her videos, you'll always be up to date with all of the travel restrictions here in the Philippines. All right, and the entire process was very, very straightforward. Casey, did you want to talk about the checkpoints in Canada?
Yes, so there's actually 2 checkpoints in Canada. So the first checkpoint is where they check all of your paperwork, just to make sure that you actually have all the paperwork and the requirements needed to enter the Philippines. And the second requirement is where you check in, and they double check your paperwork there as well, and also they check in your checked in baggage that needs to be checked in on the plane.
So in terms of the checkpoints in the Philippines, they're also very straightforward as well. The first checkpoint, what you need to show is, I took a recording of what you need at that checkpoint, so
we'll insert
we'll
it
put
here.
it like right over here. So the second checkpoint is immigration, where they check your passport. They ask you why you're coming into the Philippines. They're also asking you how long you're going to be in the Philippines for.
Just keep in mind, like, one thing to remember when they ask you how long you're staying is to state that you are staying within the Philippines, but also have an onward ticket out of the country, so that they know that you're planning to not overstay your 30 days.
I think that's the key magic word that really worked for us, is that when we said onward ticket, they automatically knew that we knew what we were talking about. Most of the time they ask you for where's your return ticket, but if you say onward ticket, they kind of know what you're talking about. All right, so tips and hacks. So my biggest tip, or one of my biggest tips, is like a hack that helps me with jet lag. Even though we're really tired, we really had a long day, to be honest, but my jet lag hack is, as soon as you get onto the airplane, make sure you watch a lot of movies. And the reason why I say that is you want to stay up as late as possible. I see a lot of people making this mistake where as soon as they get onto the airplane, they knock out, and that's, in my opinion, that's the wrong thing to do. What you want to do is stay up as late as possible. Then after maybe 6 or 7 or 8 hours, you want to fall asleep until you land. The reason for that is by the time you land, it's going to be 3 or 4 a.m. basically based on our flight experience. And then you'll be able to, since you're just waking up from your longest nap ever, you'll be able to stay up the entire day. And then around 8 or 9 p.m., which is what it is right now in the Philippines, you'll be able to sleep. And you're sleeping the right time. So you'll be able to wake up the next morning as morning instead of waking up and being like, oh shoot, I have jet lag.
Yeah, so this is a tip for anyone who has a late flight or an evening flight. If you have the opposite, then just pretty much do the opposite.
Evening flight from Canada.
Yeah, evening flight from Canada. My hack is to actually have everything printed. I know this is a digital age. We like to have things on our phone. I wanted to have things on my phone, but just thinking about it, it made sense to print everything, because you're going to be handing off these papers to immigration, to the people who are printing out your boarding passes. So you don't want to be handing out your phone every single time just for them to check everything. So just having the papers ready and printed, and also together. So let's say for John, I had all of his paperwork together, and then for myself, I had all my paperwork together. So you just basically hand that stack of paper for each person, and it just makes the process much smoother.
I think that's pretty much it for us, guys. Actually, we want to end this off with a question and some closing remarks, I guess. Casey and I, okay, for those Filipinos that live in the Philippines right now, we are having trouble. Casey and I are having trouble with making phone calls for some reason. It keeps telling us what?
That we should be adding the number 3 before dialing, because we're trying to dial a landline. So it's telling us to add number 3 before the landline number, because it's been changed to an 8-digit number for some reason.
So we've been adding 3s, double zeros, 007, I don't know. So yeah, we're not really sure what's the formula there. So if you can give us the formula for the matrix down below in the comments, that would really help us call the Bank of the Philippines. It's been 2 years since we decided to come. And
we're finally here, and it still hasn't hit us.
Yeah, but we are really grateful for this opportunity, guys. So thank you so much for everyone's support. We really appreciate it. We don't want to make this video too long, so make sure you like and comment on this video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our story, and we'll see you tomorrow. Later.